Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Will Cooper. I am the training coordinator for Infowise. I've worked with Infowise for a couple of years, and before that I was a customer. I've been using their product a lot and have loved using it over the last 5 years or so. And today I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you about doing an approval system in SharePoint. I'll show you basically just through some easy to understand steps how you can build out your own custom solution without having to use any code at all. So for our demo today, we're going to do this in Office 365, and I'm going to take you through what the result looks like first, and then we'll kind of go back, and then I'm going to walk through the steps and tell you how you're able to build something like this. The biggest thing that I hope you take away from our presentation today is that you have a solution where you can build out a custom approval process according to your own requirements, and you're able to do this without using any code at all. And with out-of-the-box SharePoint, this just isn't possible. And even with code, this can take a lot of time, and to be honest, it'd be kind of a headache to put together. And typically, there's really just very few resources, available to build that kind of process. So let's just start out by taking a look. What I have here is a system that's designed to be simple for users to use, and also it's easy to create on your end. It does need to meet some specific requirements that would be typical for an approval process. So look for these as I'm kind of going through the process. One would be able to do some type of electronic signature. And as far as the document in this case, we really want this to be very accessible if possible. Have this in the email. We'd like to see visual indicators in terms of how the approval process works. So we want things like progress indicator or flags that tell us if we've got an approval that is stalled. History tracking would always be nice. We'd like to see, especially if there's multiple approvers, when that took place or when the last approval was, things like that. So it's nice to have those breadcrumbs. As far as the approvers, we'd like to be able to set that dynamically. We want this to be a flexible process that can adapt and be used for multiple purposes rather than something that's statically defined. And then another thing is we want to have some security restrictions in here. For an approval system to work, we want to make sure that, of course, the appropriate people are doing the approvers. I shouldn't be able to approve for somebody else. So those are some of the requirements that we're going to have in our system. Kind of a lot of things to handle, but we'll just walk through and see how this works. So I'm just in Office 365. I created a simple custom list just to begin, which is document approval. I'm going to go ahead and enter an item, and we're just going to see what this process looks like. So it's very simple, user-facing. It gives the instructions. So to start, go ahead and attach a file by just click on the button in the ribbon toolbar. So this is just typical SharePoint at this stage. So I've selected my document, and then now I'm going to have a chance to pick how many approvers are needed for this. So I can say that I can have up to 3. One thing you'll notice is that the fields dynamically changed according to how many approvers I set. So we've got a system that's dynamically responding without a server post back. And again, this is without code. So I'm just going to put in the names of the approvers. Another thing we want here is, I said 3 approvers. We're going to make sure we get all that. So we're going to do validation. Make sure there's not any kind of situation where we don't get the information we're supposed to get. All right, so I'll put in a couple more people here. So as a user, I've got my document there, and I said that I need these 3 people to approve it. So I'll go ahead and save that. All right, so we're going to want email alerts to go out to notify people when they need to do approvals. So throughout this process, I'm going to show you, I do have some emails set up, and I'm going to show you how that works. So it just drops into our list in our system, and at this stage, everybody's going to see the notification that the new request has come in, so I'll go ahead and edit that. Okay, so at this stage, you can see that the interface changes. So I'm Will Cooper, so I can do my own signature and add comments, but notice that for the other fields, it's set to read only. I can't do those because that's not me. The only people that are going to be able to see that are the people under their names. So we have a security control in place, so it's a valid approval process that we're doing. Okay. So I can just click on the document to review that. That's loaded in SharePoint. If I need revisions, I can do something like that. So I can say, let's say, please do some reformatting in the first section. Okay, so I can make some notes, just use the simple text field. And when I save that, again, this is going to auto-generate emails. So we'll take a look at that in just one second. In terms of logging the history, you'll notice we did have a history tab. I'll show you something in terms of how the days work. So as we're going through the process, we want to know how many people have done the approval, when the approvals take place, that kind of thing. So this history tracking is going to automatically update. Whoops, let me try that one more time. The history tracking is going to update as we go along, so we can kind of see what we got going. So once I'm ready, I can use this electronic signature. So I'm going to go ahead and just check to sign. We do have different types. You can actually have one where it's kind of like a handwritten signature. You can do that through configuration. So once I'm ready to do that, I can just hit save. Okay, and then you see the progress bar updates. I've got a status showing me, where we are in the process, so we can differentiate between the ones that are already approved. And then the lag indicator, that's supposed to just help us in terms of, we could detect like how many days it's been since the last approval. So you can see there's the history log. That'll keep updating. There it goes. Okay, so you can see we've got like a flag indicator. So that's something we can include in our product. We want it to be able to see the things that need attention really easily. So that's a basic process. For approval, once we get all of the approvals, that's going to automatically update. So we do want to have rules in our system that'll do that. Let me show you what the emails kind of look like a little bit. So I've got a bunch of emails that have just come into my system. Here's the initial email, and this shows the names of those approvers that we set in the first step. Gives the instructions. Notice we have formatting the email, so it's going to stand out a little bit more than just kind of plain black and white. And then what's really good is we actually have the document for approval directly attached to the email. So I could view that in SharePoint, or I can just open it right there in my email. So it just makes the process even easier for those users. And then furthermore, we've got emails which would show updates. So that history log becomes important because now I can dump that into the email body, and I can see what's going on. Everybody has that transfer, the visibility in terms of seeing what's going on. This is going to help us make sure that it's not stalled out. So in this case, I've got 1 out of 3 approvals, so that'll just keep updating every time we have an update to the record in SharePoint. So the final step is just to sign off. I made the approver me both times just so I'd be able to do the update. So I'm going to check that box and hit save. and that will complete the approval for that particular one. Okay, you're going to see that progress bar fills up. We've got all green for that, that's the general process. Let me see if I have that complete email. Okay, so that's the general process that we're trying to model. So now I'm going to actually back up. I'm going to show you how this would be set up with Infowise. And the thing I want you to do, any of this, there's no code in this whatsoever. It's done completely through configuration. So the first thing you're going to do in your SharePoint list is you're going to go through and do the tab setup. So I'm going to jump to that, and let me go to the configuration screen for that. So this just shows up in your ribbon toolbar. So once you go to the list, you're going to have this with Infowise, this puzzle pieces icon, and this is the main hub for the Infowise settings. So the first thing I'm going to do is about the easiest thing in there. Basically, I'm just going to set where those fields are going to show up. So I've got two tabs. My main tab I just decided to call Approval, and then I simply select the fields in the order I want to show up. It's really simple. You can just see, you set the sequence of the fields. You can even put in little fragments. You notice I had some instructions to the user to do the upload. So you can add in these little snippets. That was the note at the top of the form. So a lot of flexibility in terms of making that form look just exactly the way you need to. And then under the general settings, there's some really simple, some different themes in terms of the look and feel. So that just shows you, you can change some things without having to put in, like your own style codes or anything like that. That's really all there is for the tabs. So that way you can break up your form. You don't have to have one long scrolling vertical form. The next thing after that, we did need to have some validation in there. So basically this just makes sure we don't miss any approvers. So if the user had selected that they needed 3 approvers, for example, we just need to validate, make sure that, that there's a name in the 3rd approver. The thing that's really good about that is we can have custom validation. So rather than just simple required or not required on fields, you can do things like pattern matching or dynamic validation where based on a certain field being filled out a particular way, you can change that rule. So it allows you to have a lot of depth to have exactly the rule that you need. And that's all that we need for validation. So that's very simple. Okay, so the business logic is done all in SharePoint. So you really don't have to use SharePoint Designer to create workflows or do some of those things that are typically a very programmer-oriented activity. I really just have a small handful of things set up in actions, and they all are very simple and easy to describe. I'll show you a couple of those. We saw how the history functionality is important. It gives us a nice log of the activity that's happening on this. So when you go in here, the first thing you do is basically decide, is this going to happen on the edit form, new form, or timer based? In which cases will this event be triggered? And then in here, I just put in some notes to basically dump out my fields and pen that in there. So all that's doing really is just updating the history field. I just put in the fields. There's a tool in here which lets me just browse to whatever I need in here, and it'll just dump into the field. And then I want to tap in for each item. So that's the only thing I needed to enter to make that history log update each time as those approvals are taking place. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show is it needs to listen for when approvals are complete. Now our system is dynamic. We set it up so that you can have 1 or 2 or 3 approvers. So it's going to handle all of those situations. So What we need to listen for is when the approval total is equal to the approver's needed number. So we just have a simple SharePoint calculated field that tells us how many approvers. So once that condition is met, if I have 2 out of 2 or 3 out of 3 approvers, it's going to trigger this. And basically all we need to do is we want to change that status to approved, and then also that's going to kick out an email. So all your business logic you can put within this section. It's very logical and intuitive. You just basically go through these steps. You set a condition when you want it to run, and then you can set up a chain of events to take place. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is column permissions. In order to get that nice security in terms of the signature field, we can create some roles here, and this allows us to control when fields are shown or invisible, or whether they're in a write or read state. So I'll talk a little bit about how that logic works. Some things are really basic. For example, history logging, it doesn't apply in the new form. I don't need to show a history in the new form because nothing's taken place yet. So I can just go in here and pick that field and say that that's hidden on the new form. And then for other forms, I can say, just show me that in a read state. So it is a rich text field, but I really wanted to just show information of the user. So I can individually go through the fields and control that. In terms of what I mentioned for controlling the signature part of this, just for example, like the approver comment, you can see I have a rule in here which says the approver has to be the current user. So the system is listening to find out, is this the user that's logged in? And if it's not, then it's going to go ahead and put it into a read state. So there's a pattern to it. I can just go through these rules. I can verify this by just opening up the form and checking my settings each time. No code needed at all. It's just based on things I could just describe as a user in the interface. So that's a little bit how column permissions work. The only thing left was the email configuration. So for emails on this, we have a tool which lets you do some very nice customization just through settings and configuration. So same thing, if I go in the ribbon toolbar, I'm going to be able to open up a menu, and I can just go ahead and create these roles. First thing you want to do is create an email template, and that's where that nice formatting is. So to do email templates, you just come in here, you have a visual editor tool, and I'll tell you a little bit about how that works. All right, still loading up. There it goes. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's a visual editor tool. I could drop in a source code if I needed to, but like I said, I promised it was a no-code solution. All this was done just using buttons in the visual editor, which lets me do the formatting. As far as the dynamic information, all of your list columns just show up on the right. So all I really have to do is highlight that and just click a button, and it'll show up right in the email body like that for me. So if you remember in the email template, it actually listed out those approver names, and that's how I'm sticking those in there. Notice I can put that information into the subject line too. So we have a system that's giving us the specific information for each approval, rather than just the same generic text with each alert. So that's how you create the templates, and then you actually are able to create rules on when that would go out. Very basic, very simple to set up. I just come in here, it's tied to the list. I just need to designate when that would go out. So for the initial announcement, of course that would happen when that document approval is first created. And I can designate recipients statically. In this case, I just have it set to myself. But then I can also go in there and tie to fields. So in our case, we like to do something like have it go to whoever the name of the person is in approver 1. and then I can just update that rule, and it's going to work dynamically according to the specific approval process that you're doing. So basically, I need to have a few kinds of alerts. We wanted to catch updates whenever that is updated. We're dumping in the history log. We want to be able to do reminders, if the user needs to send information. I'll show you how the reminder will work. Let's say that I want an approval, and the guy I'm working with, he just doesn't seem to respond, and I want to poke him. The way I can do that is one of those actions is kind of a user-facing action. So this one stalled out. You can see the red exclamation point. I can, with the tool, create a button up here, and I can say, remind him. I want a reminder to go out. So triggers that action. This is a way for the user to take control and get an email to go out. Okay, so that does trigger an email in the system. I'll show you how that works in 1 second. So the whole system is built all based on the set of steps that I showed. It's all through configuration screen. It's all based on logic that you can understand and then implement through the interface. So it's very flexible. I showed this based on user setting names, but I could very easily change the logic and make that work according to the type of approval you have. Say, for example, if there's certain approvers in your organization that always do the approval for, say, like a specific department, we could have a drop down and we can make those names change according to that rule. So I could really go in just about any direction I want just from this core system. So at this point, I'm just going to take a look at some of the questions. I appreciate that. I saw you guys have entered some questions in the chat. Okay, so one question was, is the email attachment a link to the document on SharePoint? This had both. If you noticed in the email, let me call up another one. This is the reminder. Notice I have a nice purple thing. A reminder's been sent. So this is me poking those approvers and saying, hey, it's been out there for 22 days. You need to take care of this. But notice the document's attached every time. So that's kind of a cool feature. So you could go in SharePoint, or it's actually just on the email, both. Okay. All right, let's see what else we got. Can we auto-populate the manager's name using a web service? You can set up dynamic rules according to whatever you want. I would say probably that information should be imported to SharePoint first in order to get that nice dynamic response, but certainly that type of logic could be supported. Another question, can I assign a replacement when I'm on leave so another person can do the approval? Certainly you could do that. I could build in the logic. We could have things like a security group. There might be sort of like an administrator level with the process. So we could open up, if you remember the advanced column permissions, we could set a rule which would make it possible to change the name of that approver. So that would be straightforward to set up. Is it available on SharePoint 2010? Yes, our software does fully support SharePoint 2010 if you're still running on that system. In fact, I've used Infowise for many years on SharePoint 2010. And I'd also like to comment that if you then do an upgrade later, that overall Infowise does excellent in terms of not having things sort of break or have to be reconfigured after you do that SharePoint upgrade. Okay, one person was asking, I said 3 approvals. Really, I could make this 20 approvals. I don't think I would make something like that. I don't think anybody needs something to that extent, but there's no limitation in terms of the configuration that would stop me. If you saw in the system, I basically just name fields, approver 1, approver 2, approver 3. I could keep going with that. I could go all the way up to approver 10 or whatever I decide and just keep creating rules related to that. If you notice in the very first step, I had a drop-down which let the user decide how many. So that's totally flexible. You could build this up as big as you need to do it. I'm doing this in Office 365. Somebody was asking about the version, but this same logic and everything matches exactly between the on-premise version of Infowise or for Office 365. So that's really nice. If you happen to have a hybrid environment or use both, you can take what you learned to do with Infowise and use it in both types of environments. Somebody asked about hierarchy and the approval list. So that's a really good question. I've done systems both with concurrent approvals, which is how this is set up, where basically anybody can approve at any time, or you can have a sequential approval system. That's really up to you. I mean, we could configure it basically where the approval stages would be locked until each successive approval would take place. My general recommendation on that is to avoid a sequential approval process, just because that can take longer. But in our system, this is allowing for any of those approvals to take place at any time, but it is possible to do both. Let's see. Oh, somebody asked about access and recording. That's fine. We're going to post this on YouTube so you can play back the whole recording at any time. We'll have that on our website later today. Somebody asked if you can add a table in the form. That's certainly possible. In terms of the overall product, there's all kinds of customization available, and we can insert like a sublist, which is how that would typically look. So if you look at our website, there's information about associated items and how to create a list like that, and it works very nicely. I'll just go through a couple more a couple more questions, then I'm going to kind of give some closing information. We'll try to wrap up, and I will stay on to try to answer more of the questions if I didn't get to you. Somebody asked if you can make the approvers more behind the scenes. So yes, I happen to make that user-facing, but that could be driven by business logic or set in the system. So you could lock that down and make that more explicit. That's certainly possible. I think that's about all the questions I can cover, just because I want to make sure we have enough time, and I don't want to hold anybody up for too long. So the main thing I hope that you're able to take away from this, what I wanted to demonstrate to you is that in this system I hit on many key requirements as far as an approval system in SharePoint. But all this was created without having to write any custom code throughout the system. It was just all done through configuration screens, and this is done with the Infowise Ultimate Forms product. Another thing I'd like you to get from this is that really it just took a few clicks. It's all right within the SharePoint user interface, so really easy to get to, and it's intuitive as well. So I think a lot of these things you can figure out just by clicking around and trying settings. That being said, we do have a lot of really good information in our site. One thing that a lot of our customers have done when they start with the product, we do offer a very nice web-based training plan where you can do a lab-style training with guidance from an instructor during a web meeting. Additional to that, we do have a full training section on our website, which includes YouTube videos and step-by-step on how to use all of our different kind of configuration settings. So there's plenty of guidance to help you along. And then beyond that, we have full technical documentation if you really need to get into something very specific. So there's a lot of avenues for getting information about our product. Another thing that we do is make updates on the product quite frequently. So there's all the time new features being released. So this is both for on-premise and for Office 365. You'll be able to, continuously get, the advantage of new feature adds and things like that. So we do have posts in that site, many times, each month. The next step for people who are curious about the product, if you want to dig deeper, and I hope that you will, if you want to try this product, the thing to do would be to install a demo version of the product for either for on-premise or for Office 365. Both cases, it's really easy to do. If you just go into our website under the products section, you'll be able to find the link to this. For the app version, you can actually just download it directly, and it actually shows you in screenshots just by going through a series of steps how to get this into your app catalog. And then you can try our full product for up to 30 days. So this lets you really get your hands on it and start to get a better idea how it works. So get a lot of options to get going. That really would be the next step. I know there's probably a lot more questions related to the product and the process, and we're very excited and interested to talk to you more about that. So for anybody who wants to get more information and wants to learn more on the product, please reach out with an email. You can just send that to me at willc@infowisesolutions.com. That's WILLC, or you can do sales@infowisesolutions.com. And we'll be sure to get right back to you. We can schedule a call and try to help you if you want to get some more information about the product. So that's everything that we have for our presentation today. I'm going to stay on in the chat for a little bit, but at this point we're going to go ahead and end our presentation for the approval system in SharePoint. So thanks again for your time. I hope everybody has a nice holiday break, and we'll be back next month, and we'll be showing how to do another different kind of business process in SharePoint. Thank you very much.